Hey there, nobody. Just giving a little preview with my raspy evening voice of a prophecy chart I've been working on. Also, making sure I can still stream from Discord if I want to, which it seems to be working, so that's good. But, yeah, and the lessons I've been doing, the next topic is prophecy, because that's the last one I had listed on our website, our discipleship website. And I always like to have some kind of visual or sit and think about how to present it, because the nitty-gritty details of prophecy are weaved throughout the whole Bible, and you really have to go through those to get the details. But what people want, what I've been trying to do in the lessons, is just give something they can wrap their minds around, which is not easy on a topic like that. But this is my latest attempt, and what I'm trying to do is, I had another chart before, but I don't think I had as much in it as just hitting the key points that someone could look for, you know. People during that time will know what to expect. So, that's what I've been doing. Hey, there's people in chat. Hello, Rob and Lev Kung Fu and Librastar and Zane. Good to see you guys. Yeah, if I can make a chart that makes sense to everybody, I'm going to be pretty happy with that. I'm going to see if I can move this window over just a bit. I don't know if that really made any difference, but because it's just such a huge topic. Like I said, it's throughout the Bible. The Bible is almost a third prophecy. And I'm going to go over that when I do the lesson on prophecy, with probably Monday. But yeah, I'm thinking if it makes sense to most people, that I've probably done it right. So, but I don't know if I'll be able to improve this, because it's just such a monster topic. And it's always good to have a roadmap, you know, and even if it's something, you know, especially if it's someplace you haven't been before and you're going to go, I'm thinking people who will be here during this time will benefit from it, because let's face it, during, you know, if these things are panning out the way I think they will, then nobody's going to want to sit and read a book or a thesis or, you know, a 17-volume commentary. So we need pictures, we need them short and sweet, and something you could print off, or sorry about the raspy voice, I don't know, I think I need more chocolate or something, but anyway, this is the way I see it, and like I said, I'll go over it in a lesson. I just wanted to put that out there and see if anybody has any major questions, or if something is wrong, or I left out a key passage or anything. Other than that, like I said, I'm just checking to make sure I can still stream through Discord, and it seems to be working. So, also, there's just less and less to watch on YouTube, I can tell you that, because you get tired of it. It's just the same thing all the time. I was in two different kinds of, well, there were live streams. I wasn't in them. I was just in the chat. And the first one was a regular secular flat earth chat. And I'm just hanging around talking to people, and of course they get always get into whoever is speaking or in the chats, personal views of reality and the nature of reality and consciousness and all these terms. But as soon as you say, oh, I believe the Bible, just they get so triggered. It's just unbelievable. They're like, well, I just don't like people saying that it's their God. I'm like, well, you're allowed to say what you think it is. Fair is fair. Hey, Chow, good to see you. But they don't think fair is fair because there's a supernatural hatred of the Bible and Christianity if it's not being twisted or interpreted for us by astrotheologists or atheists. You know, there's all kinds of people who think they should tell us what the Bible says, but they think it's perfectly fine for them to say what they think the nature of reality is and how this place was created, but not for us. That's not permitted, and that's making people upset and, oh well, triggered. What can you do? The other hangout, I just said hi to one person, but I knew better to do more because it's a Hebrew Roots channel, a very popular one, and it just makes me sad. I couldn't watch very much of that because, you know, you can't read the New Testament and think that it's okay to directly violate everything it says. I mean, you can't read the teaching letters in the New Testament and think that we're Israel or we're supposed to pretend we're Israel, to say we're Jews but are not. That, you know, like I said in the lessons, Jesus didn't come to install Judaism 2.0. He came to offer them the kingdom that they were promised, but they rejected it. They slapped it right out of his hand. So, but that doesn't mean they'll never get it. It just means it's been delayed. And the New Testament is replete with people trying to get that message across that we're not Israel, but it's everywhere. The Hebrew Roots thing is everywhere and mushrooming, and I, for the life of me, can't understand why people want to go back to the world, basically. Let's see. Hey, Davey, good to see you. When they knew God, they glorified him not as God. Yep. Romans 1 or something like that. But yeah, it's going back to the weak and useless things. And, I mean, Hebrews even says that this was, even in that day, the law and the temple and all that stuff was almost gone, fading away and almost gone, because it was written while the temple was still standing, but it was destroyed. The temple was in 70 AD, along with all of Jerusalem. But, you know, when it says, with the change of priesthood comes a change of law, and this is fading away, and in another place, the law was a schoolmaster to bring the Jews to the point where they could receive their Messiah, but they didn't do it anyway. And just so much that's unique about this thing we call the body of Christ that I just can't fathom or stomach. Listening to people want to go back and want to pretend that they're Jews and they never were in the first place, let alone, you know, they can't go back to it. So what are they doing there? And they love it. It's bizarre. Browsing live streams. Yep, same thing over and over and over. And I don't know why I keep looking as if something's going to change. I know it's not going to, but I look anyway. I think it's just a bad habit. It's hard to kick. Because you like to talk to people, you know. But most of the time, the people are either ignore you, twist your words, or troll you. It's just, you know, it's not going to change. Hello, Big Nicks. Glad to see anybody here. That tells me that it's slim pickings tonight. If they're coming to my channel unannounced, well, of course, announcing doesn't make any difference because YouTube doesn't announce anyway. It doesn't give people notifications, so it doesn't matter. But I had to think that there were other people online going, man, there's just no place to be. Yeah, social media is addictive, that's true. But I never cared about Facebook or Twitter or anything like that. I find it exhausting and, I don't know, annoying. But YouTube was different for some reason. I think it's because, I don't know. I guess I really don't know what it's because. But maybe because the other ones just haven't been panning out. I don't know. Oh, you do get notification? Okay. Good to see you here. It's hit or miss. And they've been messing with the YouTube software, as always, but more lately because, like, every time I would try to upload a video, it would try to change the title to the last live stream I did. And I had to keep changing it back every time and open it, close that page and then open it in a new window, or it would change it back to my last live stream title. So I don't know what's up with that. And I would get a notification that somebody subbed to the channel, and then the count goes down instead of up. It's really weird. I don't know what they're doing. But yeah, I hear you, Chow. That's exactly what it is. It's a train wreck, and you want to watch it, but it's like you're hoping there's just some familiar face in the chat that you can talk to, but they find ways to make it, turn mountains into molehills. I don't know. Yeah, we do, even if you check on the bell, sometimes you find a channel you haven't heard from a while, and you go over there and the bell's unchecked and you're unsubbed, and this happens to a lot of people. Hey, Teddy. So, yeah, algorithms, I'm a programmer, so I know how these things work, but they put way too much confidence in AI. They've tried that on Twitter. I've saw, like last year, that it turned out to be a terrible, hateful, racist piece of garbage AI. But the old saying is always still true from back in the 70s, garbage in, garbage out. You program a computer. If you didn't have to program it, then it would be truly AI. But, if you start finding intelligence in a junkyard, then I'll believe there's AI. But it isn't AI. It's just a lot of sophisticated guessing. And you can program it to do that. And you will have unexpected results because you're not perfect when you're a programmer. And so that's going to happen. And people think it's some mysterious life force, but that's not what it is. Is there a singularity coming? Well, I know there's a big reset coming. I don't know what to call it, but the Bible calls it the tribulation, but hey, yeah, artificial intelligence. It's just a clever puppet is what AI is. It still does what it's programmed to do. Will it become self-aware? They claim they've seen that happen, that machines or algorithms will do things they weren't told to do. But I still think, as a programmer, it's just that they aren't sophisticated enough in their code. And it just does things faster. That's all. Sub to a Karaite Jewish man's channel because he's flutter seems pleasant. Okay, yeah. It shouldn't be that bad, though. There should be hundreds of good Christian channels you could go to, or just channels where people are decent. But you can literally say hello and have it twisted upside down and backwards into some major drama. It's just how people are. And I think a lot of it is gaming mentality, not to say that everybody who games, because I know all sorts of nice people who are gamers, but the online gaming especially seems to attract a certain kind of mentality, and they take that with them into the world, and that's what you get in social media. But back to this chart, I guess. Does anybody see what it's about or have any questions? Because it really is just what I'm going to be working on for the next video I do. And I'll have stuff to say before that to say what leads up to this. But this is, I don't call it a timeline. I call it a sequence because nobody knows the timing. And all we know is pretty much the order. And even that is not etched in stone. Oh, thanks, Chow. Yeah, basically, let me get my cursor on a place where you guys can see it. I think you can see that. Basically, we've been in this blue box here, and Israel was exiled in 70 AD, like I mentioned. Hey, Rhonda. And that's, I give reference to where this stuff is in the Bible. And then this is also called one span that can be called the time of the Gentiles or the age of grace. That's where we are. And as part of that, I got this stem coming down here in slightly different color. there's a prophecy in Isaiah 66:8 that says, "Can a nation be born in a day? But no sooner is Zion in labor than she gives birth to her children." And that, I think, was a prediction of the fact that Israel, modern Israel, was literally created at the stroke of a pen, which is something they really couldn't imagine back then. But I think, especially, that date, 1948 or 1967 for Jerusalem, because Jerusalem is the absolute bullseye of Bible prophecy. And those things happening after almost 2,000 years gap is unprecedented in ancient civilizations, to disappear that long. Yeah, Balfour Declaration, the Rothschilds and all that. I know all about that. But the thing is that not that God had to cause it, but that God knew it was going to happen. And that's what a prophecy is. Okay, yeah, the text is probably too small, but I wanted to get the whole chart on the screen. But, and I can, let's see, I think I can get a share link from here and copy it and put that in the chat, actually. Zionism is the modern Israeli movement to put their country first. We would call it patriotism here. Anyplace else, it's their patriotism, basically. But some, there's always dark forces that take it way farther and mean something else by it. It's the same in our country, it's the same in every country, and there can be Zionists at the top there too. Top, relatively speaking, as far as who has power in the world right now. But the powers that be is a term we use to describe the people behind the governments, and they have no national loyalty, they have no genetic loyalty. Well, to them it's their bloodline, their family, not their country necessarily, because they despise everybody but them. So anyway, back to the chart. This little greenish box down here is where we're at right now. I think we're at the end of the Age of Grace. And I'm a pre-tribber. I believe that it says that there's going to, and here's a little reference here. I know it's really hard to read even for me, but I'd have to blow that up, and maybe I can do that. I don't know if I can do that on the, yeah, it will let me a little bit. Anyway, like I said, I would go more detail on that another time, but Jesus comes down, snatches us up. There's not going to be any asking to board a spaceship. I think Project Bluebeam or something like that will be a cover story to explain this disappearance, and the world would be happy they got rid of these pesky Bible thumpers and all that. So, but what I'm expecting as far as sequence goes, now this zooms without me holding control, okay, is this next part in the white down here, that Israel's border neighbors will try to wipe it off the map, and then Damascus will become uninhabited, and there will only be animals there grazing. And then is what Jesus called the beginning of sorrows. There will be a false Christ, the white horse of Revelation, and then this red horse is in my opinion, the Gog-Magog war, which I got more about down here from Ezekiel 38:39. And this may be the time, there's another obscure prophecy that people will skip in that section, that the people of Israel will be burning the weapons of their enemies for 7 years. I think it starts then, because these things in the white set this up. And then after the aftermath of war, we have famine, and then the death over a fourth part of the world. Mass martyrdom of anybody who turned to Jesus during that time. Then there would be cosmic terror, which I think refers also to people hiding in deep underground bases, because it says people hide in holes in the ground and caves and crevices of the rocks, and ask them to fall on them and hide them from the face of the wrath of the Lamb and God. Red horse, I don't think it's communism. We have to take what it means in the Bible, which is war and death. War is, typically there's going to be death with war. That's the point of war. So it's war and death. It's hot war. And then the third horse is the, see, we have white, red, black. Black is economic collapse and famine. And then the fourth one is the pale or a green horse, which is death. Jacob's trouble is the second half, and that's over here on this side, on this last brownish bar. It's prophesied Jeremiah 36-9 and Matthew 24-21. This is the time of Jacob's trouble, which is, like I said, the second half of Daniel's 70th week. That's why this is so hard to wrap minds around. There's so many things going on. Yeah, pale chloros is green, actually, in Greek. Chloros means green. People say pale because they want to make them natural horse colors, but I don't think that's necessarily required. So, yeah, the second half, when you put all the prophecies together, Jerusalem and Judea will be absolutely overrun, ransacked. The people will be, raped and murdered and robbed and just all just totally destroyed. But just before that starts, we have this stuff in the middle on the white, which includes what the Bible calls the abomination of desolation, which is from Daniel 9, and it means to desecrate a temple. So there would be a temple, it gets desecrated, and that's the point where the Antichrist will declare that he is God and do away with all other religion. That's the only one world religion the Bible talks about, is when the Antichrist demands that all the world worship him, and he puts an idol in the temple, and that's a desecration. When a few remnant of Jews, 1/3 of the Jews, see that, they're going to run to safety, and God will take care of them during that second 3.5 years. But the Jews who aren't faithful, who don't care about that, will be left there to be slaughtered. And that's how God is going to purge them. Yes, Israel's bad. Yes, they had 70 weeks of years assigned to them for punishment, and there's one group of 7 years to go, and that's what the tribulation is. And we get most of that timing stuff from Daniel 9, and we have also Daniel 11 down here for who this beast is, as far as description by behavior and all that. So yeah, this is what's coming. And so we got, right now, you are here almost. We're waiting, Jesus coming back to take his people out because they belong to him, not because they're awesome and wonderful, but because they put their trust in him. And we are not to suffer the wrath of God. This is very clear in Scripture. And the wrath begins with the seals, because the Lamb, Jesus, is opening those seals, and every time he opens his seal, something bad happens on earth. So, and even by the sixth seal, everybody's saying, hide us from the wrath of the Lamb and the wrath of the one sitting on the throne. So they know it's coming, and I believe that this is, like I said, the beginning of sorrows, that the seals and the beginning of the sorrows are between the rapture and the tribulation, and that these seal judgments are set up by Psalm 83 and Isaiah 17. So these things seem to set that up, and then the Gog-Magog war, because that war is when Israel suddenly has more land as a result of this war, and they will live in security, and Gog-Magog will see this and go, hey, we're going to take a plunder from a nation that's off its guard and has a lot of stuff to take. So that's why I think that's the sequence. See, looking at the chat, significance of the last trump. Yeah, first of all, Old Testament, there were 2 silver trumpets made. That people always think of the shofar, the ram's horn, but there were 2 silver trumpets made. One was for the purpose of when the people of Israel were wandering in the desert. The first one was blown for the purpose of telling them to break camp. The second one was blown to tell them it's time to go. So, since the scripture that talks about the last trump was written before Revelation was given, by at least 20 years, they wouldn't have had that last trump in mind. They would have had the Old Testament last trump, if anything, and that one went to go. And that's exactly what the rapture is. Actually, the term in Scripture is the departure. And because that's what apostasia means. It's been transliterated as a new made-up English word, apostasy, but in Greek, apostasia means to depart. And that's how it was translated in every version in English up to before the King James. But the last trump is either that trump to move out, and this is also repeated in the early chapters of Revelation, where in the first chapter, the Apostle John hears a voice like a trumpet, and it was Jesus speaking to him. And then by the end of chapter 3, beginning of chapter 4, he says he hears the trumpet-like voice again and sees an open door in heaven, and a voice says, "Come up here." So, no, it's not the seventh trumpet in Revelation, because the last trump in the New Testament context is a blessing from God. The seventh trump is a judgment against people and is blown by an angel. So there's differences in those trumpets. Apostasy can mean departure from the faith. It depends on the context. Because if the topic is people following false teachings, then yeah, in that context, it would mean departure from the faith. But in the context of the last days, when you will find that word, it's talking about being snatched up to meet the Lord in the air, and it's departing the world. So, but yeah, we got the seals, and then the trumpets, in my opinion, are the first half, and where the seals had 1/4 of things going wrong, the trumpets have 1/3, and it will involve much more terrifying stuff, because God is there's 7 per each of these 3 groups of 7. There's 3 groups of 7 judgments. So God is doling this out in stages that get worse and worse. So at every step, people are still given an opportunity to turn to him. And so then we have hail, fire, blood. Then we have a burning mountain. Then we have wormwood, which means bitterness, that poisons the fresh water, 1/3 of it. Then we have 1/3 of the moon and stars' light is darkened, which is really interesting. All of them are going to be darkened by 1/3. And then we have the abyss being open, which is, in my opinion, is what they're trying to do with CERN. They won't be able to, but not until God gives the key, and here at the 5th trumpet. And then 1/3 of the world dies, and there were 2 witnesses operating during this time, and they die here, so they had to have been busy for 3.5 years. So the 2 witnesses down here in this reference will be outside of Jerusalem for 3.5 years, and that's in Zechariah 4:11 and Revelation 11. But let me catch up with the chat here. Let's see. Yeah, all the wrath of God starts with the seals, because they even say this is the wrath of God. But the tribulation is a 7-year period that prophesied by Daniel to finish up the judgments against Israel and the unbelieving world. So that's why, even though the wrath starts with this first brown box, and they get a little darker as we go, the second brown box is actually when, in my opinion, there's going to be a covenant or treaty enforced for 7 years. And I think it involves the aftermath of these wars that gave Israel more land, and so they'll get to build their temple in exchange for laying down their arms, and they will have temple sacrifices, and they are totally prepared for this. They really are. Hey, Mark. So, yeah, Chernobyl does mean the same thing, but that doesn't mean that's the final fulfillment of Bible prophecy, is all the point I would make. But yeah, this is all the wrath of God. But until the 7-year treaty is enforced or confirmed, it's not the tribulation starting yet. So I believe there's a gap of some amount of time, I can't say how much, between the departure and the seals, where these 2 things happen, the Psalm 83 and prophecy and the Isaiah 17 prophecy. I think those happen. Then the seals begin, and we have all this stuff. Then we have the trumpets. So there's 7 worse disasters, and this is also when, like I said, the abomination, that's when the temple's desecrated, and the faithful Jews take off. The rest of them are left there to be absolutely destroyed. But the book of Revelation stops here to give 7 signs or visions. And that's where you find out more about the woman of 12 stars, chapter 12, which I think is absolutely clear that this is representative of the nation of Israel, because it's exactly detailed the same dream that ancient patriarch Joseph had in Egypt, well, before he went to Egypt, where his mother, father, and 11 brothers would bow down to him, and he became a ruler in Egypt, and that was fulfilled. But so for Revelation to use that terminology, it's telling us this is the nation of Israel who gave birth to the man-child Jesus and all that. And people say it's a constellation. It could be, but that's not certainly the primary meaning. But hey, more people. Hello, Larry Moore. Anyway, there's a lot of 7s in here, too. 7 seals, 7 trumpets, 7 visions. Some people count 7 personages. There's the 2 beasts and the woman, the 2 different women, and, the 2 witnesses and so forth. I hope we didn't just lose live stream. I heard a strange noise. No, I think it's still running. Anyway, so then the last 3.5 years is absolutely horrible. People, when the beast rises, makes everybody take the mark of the beast, which the Greek tells us is an etching into the skin, and it's the beast's name or number, not our personal ID or our financial records or anything like that. But I think it will be given as a transhumanist DNA upgrade. And okay, good. And that these sores that break out on the first vial judgment or bowl judgment is the body rejecting the new DNA. And this is why I think why the Bible says that anyone who takes that mark is absolutely doomed and there's no hope for them, because they're not totally human anymore. They wanted to be transhuman and they got it, so that means they can't be saved. So hopefully nobody's here for that, but for anybody who would be, that's something you don't want to do. And then everything in the sea dies, everything in the rivers dies, the sun gets extremely hot and scorches people, and then it goes dark. Then the Euphrates River dries up, and a 200 million demon army comes from the east, crossing the river. Why they have to cross the river, I don't know. I'm just reading what it says. And then there's the Battle of Armageddon, which really never gets started. It's not really World War III. I would put World War III more like this Gog-Magog war, but Armageddon is when people see, finally, Jesus is coming back to set up shop, and they see him and they muster an army and think they're going to defeat him, which is just stupid, and he just wipes them all out in one stroke. So there really isn't a battle there at all. And that's the end of Jacob's trouble. And then we get into the beast and false prophet are thrown into the lake of fire. Satan is put into the abyss and locked up for 1,000 years, which is called the millennium. That's what it means in Latin. Millennium, 1,000 years. And talks about Babylon, and then there's another trumpet that calls the bride and bridegroom out of their chambers to the wedding feast on earth. So out of heaven to earth. And then there's this wonderful back to nature kingdom for 1,000 years. And then at the end, there's one last shot at trying to overthrow God. So that's basically what this is, but I will go over that again in the next video I upload. Yeah, 200 million. Do you think the mark may be a big chip, a biochip? I kind of lean not. I think it's probably getting people conditioned to take it by putting chips in people. But as far as being the mark, the thing is that chip right now is being put in as a identifier for you personally. Whereas the mark of the beast is an identifier for the beast. So it's a pledge of loyalty with the beast name or number etched into the skin like a tattoo. So I kind of don't, I don't lean toward the mark of the beast being a chip. I just think that's a runner up to it, or a conditioning Yeah, that was a one-sided battle. Yeah, I do think it involves a DNA upgrade. It makes a lot of sense of things that way. Yeah, after the 1,000 years, there will be no more death. There will be no more suffering. There will be, of course, no more mortality. That's what mortal means, is able to die. It won't happen anymore. All the judgments are done. All the records are closed. And there will be a new heaven and a new earth. So we just don't know. And, I'm guessing we wouldn't get it if we were told, but this is what we were told, so this is the part I'm studying. But I really don't know much about. But it will be, see, the New Jerusalem is the city that, as far as I can tell, that followers of Jesus will live in. There will be people on the earth, but there will be people in the New Jerusalem. And it never says it touches down, but it's about 1,400 miles square at the base and 1,400 miles high, which could either be a cube or a pyramid. And it will light the earth, which is pretty darn hard to do if the earth is a spinning ball. So anyway, it doesn't say it touches on the earth. So, and people will say, well, it has foundations that must touch the earth. And I'm like, not necessarily so. But anyway, all sorts of things. I like I said, I was just making this chart to try to help wrap our minds around what is to come without getting so detailed that people just, glaze over. That's just what I was hoping to avoid. Let's see. Yeah, it doesn't say a whole lot. It's just going to be great. And, I kind of trust God that it will be. White throne judgment. Yeah, there's 2 judgments to come. One is, the first is called the Bema judgment, which Bema is a judgment seat where a ruler or judge would sit to hear cases. And it says, we're told that one is for believers. That's the judgment of our rewards and things done in the body, good or bad. So there will be things taken away and things given depending on how you live your life. So when people say that, oh, you're saved by grace, then you can sin all you want and it doesn't matter. No, that's not how it is, because if you're truly saved, you're not going to sin all you want. You're not going to want to sin. So the thing is that whatever you chose to live as, that's what you're going to get rewarded for. So there shouldn't be any sadness for not getting a reward if you chose not to have it by how you lived. So that's one judgment. The other one is for everybody else at the end of the millennium, before eternity sets in. Everyone else is judged. And I don't think that is the white throne, that one. And, yeah, there will be mortals and immortals on the new earth, because there have to be mortals at the end of the tribulation, because the earth will be repopulated. And there's a statement in the Old Testament that during that time, anyone who dies before the age of 100 will be thought a mere child. So there are people dying. They'll be long-lived like they were back, ancient times, but people will still die, so they're still mortal, and they will still have their soul judged at the end. So that's why I believe that not everyone at the White Throne Judgment is doomed. What's the point of the judgment otherwise? Plus, yes, they will be judged on the way they live too. So we get judged, the people who reconcile with their Creator will get judged according to what rewards they get or don't get. And people who chose to not spend eternity with God will get rewards that are bad or less bad, depending on how they lived. So, maybe there's some really awesome people who just still couldn't bow to God, who will be separated him for eternity, but that's all. Even that's bad enough, but I think that's all. I don't think everybody's going to be tormented. Now, before anybody says I'm a universalist, or an annihilationist, I do believe in eternal conscious torment for people who asked for it. God doesn't send anyone to hell, and he reluctantly lets them go there because they said, hey, we don't want to spend eternity with you, so he made a place for them to go. And they asked for it. So, I'm sorry there's no door number 3, but that's just how it is. There's God and not God. There's not a sort of God, or you can have the nice things of God without God himself. That's just not how it works. Okay, and good to see you then. Have a good night there, Larry. So, that's what I'm hoping, because there is a lot of confusion on the topic, and understandably so, because it is a huge, huge topic. So what I try to do is boil it down as small as I could without skipping anything really important. So there's a lot missing from this chart, but I'm hoping it would be enough to help anyone to understand it, the big points, because that's all most people are really interested in anyway. So, but this is right now the best I can do to boil it down to essentials, to bullet points, basically, instead of a whole novel or something. Just give me some bullet points, give me an outline. And pictures work really well for that. The words are there mostly to back up the picture and give references to anybody who wanted to look them up. So, like I said, I will go over this again probably Monday and give some more background to it, backdrop. But that's what I'm expecting. I'm expecting to soon have the departure or rapture, and then there will be wars by Israel's neighbors to try to wipe them off the map. They will fail, so Israel will suddenly have more land and a lot more wealth. And during, I think, as an aftermath or concurrent with that, Damascus, the city, will be uninhabited by people. And this sets up the fake Antichrist who will come on the scene. And people have disappeared and there's been these wars, and here comes this apparent savior. And the Jews have their temple, and then some weird things start to happen. And little by little, God tries to get, people to wake up that they need to repent of rejecting him, and sin in general, and the Jews especially for rejecting their Messiah. There's a scripture that says they will, when they see him, they will mourn for him like an only son, because they will realize that they crucified their own Messiah. So that's a big deal. But, okay, good idea there, Chow. Yeah, it's hard to see on this, I know, but, it's proof of concept, basically. But yeah, this is for anybody, once again, the dry bones prophecy. I didn't talk about that here. There's a prophecy of dry bones that Ezekiel saw in chapter 40, or not, Ezekiel 37, where this is why I say it's going to be a unified kingdom of Israel restored in stages, because there was this, valley that he was shown that was full of the bones of the dead, and God says, do you think these bones can live again? And Ezekiel's like, I wouldn't know, you would. And so he's told to speak to the bones, and they assemble into skeletons, and then the muscles and tendons form, and then the skin forms, and then God breathes life into them. So this is telling me there's a stage to this restoration of Israel, and it happens over time. And I think it started in 1948. And that this is going to go through the millennium is when they are actually come to life again, when they have life breathed into them and they're back in right relationship with God. As I've been saying, it's going to come full circle from the first century when Jesus is here the first time, because there's Israel in the land in unbelief, and they will have a temple that won't have the ark in it, like it didn't in the first century. People don't realize the ark was already gone before then. It was not there in Herod's temple. And so I don't expect they'll have to have one now. Some people speculate that the ark is that they know where it is. It's behind, underground somewhere, and that they'll whip it out for the tribulation temple. But I wouldn't bank on that. Anyway, so we disappear. There's a bunch of wars around Israel. They wind up with more land. And then a bunch of weird stuff starts to happen. And then there's a 7-year treaty signed. And it gets weirder. And during that, you'll know it's the first 3.5 years when you see the two witnesses in Jerusalem. And everybody will hate them. And they're going to be killed by the Antichrist after the 3.5 years. This is this middle white part. and everybody will have a party. They'll send gifts to each other because their dead bodies will be left in the middle of Jerusalem for 3.5 days, 3.5, and then God calls out from heaven and raises them to life and takes them up, and everybody's horrified and terrified, and then a bunch of other bad things happen, and that's when the really, really, really bad stuff happens for 3.5 years. Now, as far as there's a prophecy about if the days had not been shortened, no one would be left alive. Nobody knows if that means there's going to be less than 3.5 years after that, or whether the length of each day is shorter. We don't know. But that's what to expect, as far as I can know. And, I'm probably wrong, but, so is everybody else. The iron and clay. Yeah, I did go over that in the study on Daniel, because that's where the prophecy is. But I know that there's various theories. Some say that it refers to human and not human, because it uses terms like mixing with the seed of men. But if you look at all the different research and history and figures of speech and all those things, the conclusion I would come to is that it simply is an attempt by the revived Roman Empire to mash people together who don't get along. Kind of like the EU, or like the multiculturalism all around the world right now. They're trying to make people live together who have very different cultures, and it doesn't hold together very well. That's the point of the iron mixed with clay, in my opinion. Who are the they? I would say that they are the leaders of the Roman Empire, which is also, in my opinion, the same pretty much as the secular Babylonian Empire, because they're called by both names. That so-called Mystery Babylon is really a mistranslation. It should be on this other woman's head than the visions, is written a cryptic name, Babylon the Great. So, but anyway, that's who I think they are, these last days empires. Not the Genesis. No, I don't think so. I can't rule it out, but like I said, all things considered, of the various commentaries and history and stuff, I just think it's mostly more like what they're trying to do today and push cultures together and try to make them be one people, but it just never holds together. Like I said, like it's like the EU, or what they're trying to do in the US and pretty much the whole world is transplant people to different places, and trying to make them get along, and it's just not going to work. Yeah, Chuck Missler thought that, and I also have to, I agree with him on the fact that creation is designed, but I think he goes too far with his sim theory. Well, he's gone on to heaven since then, but I think he went too far with the sim theory, with this being a computer simulation. And the thing is, whether it is or isn't doesn't even matter, because if you're in a simulation, if you're a character in the game is real to you. It's your reality. So there's really no point in calling it a simulation. It's a creation, yeah, and it's designed, yeah, but we are free will sentient beings, and I don't think there's any reason to even speculate about whether it's a simulation or not, because it doesn't even matter. But as far as that iron mixed with clay, I really do. I think it's just ordinary humans. But yeah, he was big into that. Especially in his later years, he was big into that. Now, he was an engineer, so he knew kind of what he was talking about on that. He knew electricity and things, but I think that, again, I just don't see the point of it. It's like arguing about Mandela effect. What's the point? Because if the evidence itself can change, then it's impossible to prove or disprove. And I think there's a lot of faulty memory going on with that. And but also there have been people who say they think it's a magic spell, actually, because it really does happen to people who are looking for it. And there will be people who say, no, I wasn't even looking for it. But that happens with spells a lot of times. They prey on the innocent as well and draw them into it. So all they have to do is give you one little magic trick and you're in. So that's what a lot of people that I've heard say that they used to be deep into it and they renounced it and now it doesn't happen anymore. So just to add that to the pile of speculation. But, yeah, there's weird things coming, that's for sure. But nobody can say they weren't warned. That's all I'm, all the prophecies are for. And like I said, the Bible is almost a third of it is prophecy, so it's kind of a big deal. But it's a topic people don't like to talk about because there might be arguments. Like there aren't arguments on every other topic. But I don't know. It is hard to wrap minds around. But it isn't as bad if you keep trying. And that's the thing. Creation is from the mind of God. Right. Yeah, I don't stress over the mechanics of how he did it. Although it's interesting to try to figure it out. I mean, I've always loved scientific pursuits anyway. But it's not something I would obsess over. Are aliens coming who will really be fallen angels? I believe so, yes. We already know about demons. They've been here. But I think, at least by when the abyss is open, the locust-looking army that comes out has Satan as their leader, Abaddon, the destroyer, or Apollyon. And so that's a demon army of some sort. But coming from the abyss, I think they have to be the fallen angels who have been kept there in prison in Tartarus, because they were doing the Genome Project back in Genesis 6. They were punished for that. But I don't know that all fallen angels did that. I don't know that every one of the 1/3 of the angels that followed Satan actually messed with the human genome. I don't know that. So I can't say that all of them have been locked in the abyss, but I do think that they were the origins of heathen myths, Greek and Roman, especially the pantheons and all the other religious pantheons. I think that's what they're based on. The reality that was fallen angels who were demanding to be treated as gods, and they were very harsh and had terrible characters. So there could be very well some of that class of being in the world right now. There are also others of them who it says, like in Revelation, will say that there have been angels bound at the Euphrates River for this day and month and hour and year. And that there's a point where 4 of them are holding back the wind until God seals his servants. And so there's a lot going on in the angelic world that we aren't, we just don't have a full picture of. But I think that the demons are the hybrid offspring of the fallen angels and humans. They were the Nephilim, and when their bodies died, being half angel, they couldn't go to the place of the dead, so they wandered the earth. And that's what demons do, and that's why they want to possess people, because they want their bodies back. They're just like they crave having a body, and that's what I think demons are. So I don't think they're the spirits of yes, they're spirits of the giants because the giants were the Nephilim, but not the fallen angels. It's just a little distinction there. But yeah, I agree they're not the angels themselves. And that 200 number, I think, comes from Enoch, so I can't really vouch for it either way. As far as the Bible is concerned, it doesn't really say a number. I haven't prayed for visions. Kind of hinted one recently. Know what the mountains and clouds. Okay, I don't know. Exactly, are you asking a question or are you just saying something that you saw? Not sure what you mean there, Chow. Okay. But yeah, that's another thing, just to go on a little tangent, is visions and prophets. There was the latter rain movement. There was the Kansas City prophets. There's all kinds of people, even, well-meaning people who don't have the bad behavior of some of those big names, but they say that they've had visions. They say they get tours of heaven every other day, and that they're told all sorts of things. But all I know is that in the Bible, only 2 people went to heaven and came back, and only one was allowed to talk about it. The one that was allowed to talk about it was the Apostle John, who was given the revelation. The other was the Apostle Paul, who said, I can't tell you. I'm not allowed to tell you. So when people say they go to heaven every other day and they're just blabbing these long stories about it, I'm really suspicious of it. But I'm not saying about you, Chow. I'm just saying, just randomly, it kind of reminded me of some things. Yeah, no problem. So yeah, and I expect more of that, especially, when Jesus was asked about the end times before his crucifixion, the first thing he said is, "Don't be deceived." So there's an awful lot of that going on, and that's just talking about the Christian community, let alone the world. And there's a thing that people might have heard of, the strong delusion. That one is given by God to people who hated the truth, especially in context that seems to infer the truth or imply the truth of the gospel. So people who rejected the gospel and hated truth, will be strongly deluded, and that will be from God. Because there's so many Christians who will say, if you disagree with them on some secondary doctrine, that you are a victim of the strong delusion, which is ridiculous. Because God doesn't fool his own people. Zane, yeah, kind of. I've been babbling for a while here, but I got this chart up on the screen. There's one that I just finished today. Actually, I think I just started it this morning. In preparing for my next topic lesson, which will, of course, be on prophecy. And I was just kind of going over it to see if, what my goal is to, if most people can get the gist of what's coming, I'll be happy with that. Because it isn't a super detailed chart with every little thing in it. And that's what most people don't want. They give me the bullet points, and that's what I'm trying to really do there. So I did post a link to this earlier. I think I still have, yeah, that should be it. So if you want to see the chart big enough to read, there it is. And like I said, I will be showing this in the next lesson video, which will probably be Monday. So that's what this was mainly about. And then I kind of ranted just ever so slightly about a couple of, what a barren wasteland YouTube has become when it comes to trying to find any kind of fellowship, even if it's secular. So I just thought I'd throw a hangout together and show this chart. So other than that, I might shut down unless there's a good reason not to. I am on Discord right now, so if anybody wanted to pop in and talk about anything, this is your big chance, because I'll probably shut it down otherwise. But I'm in my own server right now, the Friend Connect. So if you're in that one and you want to hop on panel, and tell me now, because otherwise I'll probably shut down. But if the stream's been holding together, even though I'm showing screens and everything, then I'm happy with being able to do that in the future if we did have plans to go live with a Bible study sometime. Because I think so also that, we were talking about that in the Discord server, that what I think people are looking for in YouTube is a hangout where there's 3 or 4 people just talking about this stuff. I think people would come to that. Because, you can play off each other and have ideas and make better, more points, and people can take little breaks if they need them. So, and I think if we did that on a regular basis, that'd be, attract some attention and provide something that's been missing from YouTube, because, we're all here right now, just all 11 of us, or we're down to 8, because there isn't any of that going on. At least not places where they will time you out if you don't read the King James or practice Hebrew roots or whatever crazy thing it is. We at least don't do that. We just ask for civilized behavior is all. But we do have, in another Discord channel, we're trying to start a weekly Bible study on Sunday nights at 8 Eastern. But we're really picky who we let in there, so it isn't just up to me. But I think we would, if we had enough members and interest, we would also do public live streams like this, only have more than just me on it, and talk about whatever you guys want to talk about, you know. So it can happen. We just need the numbers, and I know there's got to be more people who are looking for something like that, but it's, you know, there'll be 500 people at a Hebrew Roots one or a King James only one or whatever it is, but we got 9 here right now. So, but like I said, if you guys spread the word around, we might be able to make this happen. And Chow, I think a long time ago we sent you an invite to a server. I don't know if you got it. I can try again, I think, if I can remember how, because I don't want to post it here on YouTube. But you're certainly welcome to come. And I'm going to just check first. I think there's a couple of servers I'm in. I don't remember which one I invited you to. Yeah, I think it's this one. You know, we have that website. Go to, let me get the Salt and Light link. That's our website, and you can go to the click on the contact us there, and I will get an email, and then I'll send you the invite through the email. I don't know where you're at, Mark. I'm in my own Friend Connect server right now. Okay, yeah, well, you can try that link anyway, Chow, if you want. Well, the link I just put in the chat is for... Okay, cool. Yeah, that's how he can send us an email, or he can find the email. I think he found it. And he can join up our Discord server. And, yeah, he wants in on the Bible study. So, but I'm not in that server right now. I'm broadcasting from my own. So, in the future, if we get enough people who want to do a live stream hangout like that, like we're doing right now, because the Bible study on Sundays is, I think, going to remain just in Discord and not be live streamed. But there's interest on other topics we could do on other days or times and have a live stream like this. Only to be on panel, you wouldn't get on Hangouts, you would get in Discord, and I will handle the connection to YouTube. So that's the way it's going to be. Hopefully we'll get some interest in that and be able to do this more often. Because I am kind of winding down the lesson stuff, I think, because I only have the plans for the one more video right now until another topic comes up. But that webpage I just posted, there's a link there to the course, which is a kind of a self-paced discipleship course, or at least getting familiar with the Bible. Yeah, it will take a long time, but the book studies are a half hour each, even though there's a bunch of them. There's a half hour each, so they're nice little chunks. But the topic studies are longer because I don't like to break up topics too much. So they've been a little longer. But anyway, I got one more topic to do that I had of the things I had planned on the website, and then after that I don't know what I'll be uploading when. But I would like to do more of just the live streaming because it's a lot of work to do those lessons. Anyway, yeah, we'd be happy to have more bodies in the server, so spread the word around. You can spread that link because it's just a public website, and when people click on the contact link, it's just them opening their own email client, and we'll get the email, and then we'll reply there and give you the Discord link. So, if we know you. So we're not going to let, Troll Team 6 on or anything like that. Alrighty, well, I think that's all I have to ramble about other than the usual, YouTube is a dry, barren desert of either really bad Christian teachings or bad behavior or from Christians and non-Christians alike, so. But yeah, it's pretty dismal out there, so you just know that there are people trying to make some sort of place for people to go, even if it is a homeless shelter. So, all right, well, I think I'm gonna go ahead and stop the stream. So thanks for coming.